Welcome everyone to our meeting tonight at our budget. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's meeting is just a budget workshop. So we will be having no public input tonight. We have yet to go over all the different parts of the budget, so we're doing that first. So next week would be the time if you have public input to come. We may be starting early. We don't know, to give you more time to voice your opinions. So I'm going to hand it over to the superintendent.
Thank you. So we have an agenda this evening to finish the discussion of some of the tabs in the budget binder. And also there were some questions that came up from our Saturday workshop. So we will be able to address some of those questions. And then there were some considerations that we wanted further information and discussion about. So we will also head into those parts of the conversation. This workshop is scheduled for about 90 minutes, but at that hour mark, we'll just check in and make sure everything is proceeding okay. It's a lot of information that we presented on Saturday. It's a lot of information that we have tonight. So we'll just do a quick check-in to make sure that everybody's on track to stay that additional half hour for that. And then we move into an executive session at the close of that, at the close of our workshop. That executive session will not have any business done after that fact. So that's that. So our first item is, we're going to skip it. It's facilities and maintenance and the capital improvement plan overviews. And Kevin, there's a bus, not one of ours, but there's a bus at one of the schools that was there for an activity that has a problem. So he's down there just at the middle school, I believe it is. So he's down there right now, just assessing that situation. So when he comes or when he's able to be online, we will fit him into the agenda. So the next part of the agenda is the fund balance and budget specific questions from Saturday. So we'll start with the fund balance.
Hello. Section 11 in your budget binder has some fund balance worksheets. We give you fund balance worksheets for the general fund, which is the majority of the budget. We give you one for adult education and one for school nutrition. One of the things on the Saturday, during our Saturday meeting, I was struggling to provide layman's terms for fund balance. What is it? It's an accounting term, and what it is, it equates to almost net worth. So you take assets, which are things you own or things that are due to you, and you subtract out your liabilities, which are things you owe to other people. And whatever the balance is your fund balance. And they call it a fund balance because we track everything in government accounting separately. So we track our general fund, which has regular instruction, special education, those sorts of categories. We also track every grant separately. And there are separate funds, again, for adult education and school nutrition. The way the fund balance grows over time is by under or overspending your budget. So if you collect if you have income of $1,000 and you spend 500 will be added to your fund balance. If you collect $1,000 and you spend 1,500, 500 will be reduced from your fund balance. So it's basically a picture of your overall financial health over time. You want it to be a positive number, not a negative number. And it is essentially, if you look at it from the income and expenses year to year, it is cash that we've collected from the towns or from the state that haven't been spent. So it's cash-like, but it does not equate to the cash in a bank. It's not this, it doesn't correlate like that. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that was the best way I could find to try to explain it. Anybody have any questions about that in particular? So again, on tab 11, or in tab 11, you have some worksheets. The first one is for the general fund balance. One other thing, fund balance can also be money that is not able to be spent, which is why it doesn't equate to cash. When we have to prepay a bill, for example, in June, every year, we have to pay our dental premiums for July. And so it's not in the right fiscal year. So in accounting, we still save money for that. And we consider it unspendable fund balance. So there's a multitude of things kind of coming in there. You can see on the general fund balance, we have an estimated fund balance at June 30th, 2024, 3.5 million. We have a little bit of prepaid expenses, 62,000. And we have 2.2, almost 2.3 million that we are using in the fiscal 25 budget that brought our percentage down. That leaves us 1.17 million in fund balance, and I am proposing that we do not touch that. That currently is less than one payroll. We have 26 payrolls every year. It's less than one. And I would like to see it grow closer to the state limit, which is, I believe is currently 6%. This is not there. The second page, you'll see the school nutrition fund balance, and they have a healthy fund balance. For the first year in a few years, since COVID, I think, they are going to use 115,000 of their fund balance, leaving them 775,000. And again, we don't want that number to go to zero. We want to have some in there. But using that reduces the amount we have to ask from the towns. So, and at this point, they're in a good situation. We then have adult education fund balance. And you can see that we've been using it. And this will be probably the last year we can depend on this. So starting in fiscal 27, I anticipate having to take a look at the program and determine how much, make the decisions then, because they won't be able to use any much fund balance like they have been in prior years. But we'll need to get to the end of fiscal 25 before we can really make any decisions that way. That's all I have.
Right now, we'll just go on to some specific questions from Saturday. Before I begin this section, I just want to let everyone know that we have our administrators and cost center directors in the audience, or they're just a click away by phone. So if there's any specific questions for a school, say, or a department, everybody's available to answer those questions as well. So we will just start kind of going through the list of what was asked on Saturday, the first being enrollment. So again, all these are in tab 17. So the enrollment by school was the question for next year. So I will read these off just so you have that information and you can look on tab 17. Okay, so Hussey School will have 401 students, and that will be pre-K to grade 3. North Berwick Elementary School will be pre-K to grade 3 with 231 students. The Knowlton School will have 244 students, and that will be grade 4. Noble Middle School, 379 students for grades 5 and 6. Lebanon will be Hanson School, kindergarten to grade 3, 262 students. And Noble High School, 1,303 students, grades 7 to 12. The next item, yes.
On that, Audrey, can you also just let us know what you are planning for administrative responsibilities and
So-
one to have each one? Thank you.
Yep. So at Hussey School, 2 full-time, 1 assistant and 1 principal. North Berwick currently 1 principal. However, the intent is to have the assistant principal at Hussey go over to offset some time over there. The Knowlton School, 2 full-time, an assistant and a principal. No, sorry. Yeah, so go into Knowlton School again, I'll say that, 1 full-time principal, 0.6 assistant. Noble Middle School is 2 full-time, 1 assistant and 1 principal. And Lebanon for Hanson School would be a full-time principal and a half-time assistant. Noble High School will have 4 administrators, principal and 3 assistants.
What's Hussey again?
2 full-time, 1 principal, 1 assistant principal. However, the assistant principal will go and add some support over to North Berwick.
And so North Berwick then will only just have 1 principal.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, the next section or the next question was about adult ed. And that is there. That is a very, it's a, like a spreadsheet document with, it's in, some of you have blue. So it looks like this. I don't think it's colored for some of you. Okay. So this is just the adult ed numbers for fiscal year 22 all the way to as of March right now. So I will just kind of go through that. And again, that's as of right now. So I'm just going to read March. So for as of now, 24-25, the high school diploma and high SAT graduation graduates are 4. And then the total HSD high SAT students served, 25. The MCCA students are 8. And that is Maine College and Career Access. So we have some funds given to us through a grant. And that is that category. So 8 students for that. And then MLL 25, and that's multi-language learners. Adult transitions, we have 4. Adult transitions is anybody that is going through some employment training or getting ready to move into employment, enhancing employment and college readiness, skilled labor support. So things like that. Credit recovery currently at 0. Students age 16 to 20 served is 18, and we don't have the total enrichments yet. We'll have that in the later spring. Next item. The next item. Okay, it's working. The next item is professional development.
What?
Do I have it wrong? Nope, just bring your own device.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, Bridget had to step out for a meeting, but she will come back later if we get any questions, but we can go over.
There it is. Okay, so a question came up about,
Go ahead.
okay. Just what it would cost, or what are the benefits or some challenges or cons around having students supply their own devices in the building or the buildings. So just a couple highlights. So some of the pros would be that we do provide one-on-one district-owned devices for all of our kindergarten to 12th grade students. If 30 students per grade opt for a bring your own device in grades 5 to 12, the district could reduce purchases by 210 devices over 3 years. So that would be an annual savings of $28,000 for $9,334 per year over a 3-year lease. If all students are required to bring their own devices, there would be a cost savings in devices, but an increase in the cost for staff to support the added challenge of unmanaged devices. Approximate costs for K to 3 iPads, 1 grade replaced annually is $120,000. If paid outright, in the recent past, this amount has been leased. Approximate cost for 4 to 12 Chromebooks, 2 grades replaced annually is $230,000. If paid outright, in the recent past, this amount has been leased. So some of the cons that were noted by our technology department and what Bridget compiled for us is Inaccurate bring your own device estimates could leave some students without devices. No district provided backups for broken or restricted personal devices. Lack of district software. Bring your own device may lack essential software for standardized tests and classroom management. Compatibility and installation issues that disrupt learning. There are some issues around equity. Not all families can afford high-end devices. Performance disparities create unfair advantages, including access to educational resources and academic time loss for troubleshooting problems. There are some security and privacy risks, increased risk of cyber threats, data breaches, and hacking. Bring your own devices are limited to restricted guest networks or the network. Student safety issues. District-provided devices include monitoring tools, security filters, aware classroom. Bring your own device lacks school-managed filtering and security protections. IT support challenges. Bring your own devices are not vetted by IT. There's increased troubleshooting for staff and teachers. Bring your own devices may not be compatible with the networks. Bring your own devices are replaced less frequently, leading to a variety of support and security challenges. There's a lack of regular maintenance. Families must maintain OS updates, security protections, and device cleanliness. There's also lack of maintenance which causes classroom disruptions and IT strain. Liability concerns. IT staff are not responsible for personal device repairs. District liability for personal device damage at school or on the bus. And then increased distractions. Bring your own devices lack school controls, allowing access to games, social media, and non-educational content. Additional limits to the guest network would negatively impact staff and visitors. Teachers have limited classroom management capabilities over bring your own device. And then you can see on the third page, there's a cost comparison for bring your own device versus the district devices. You can look through that.
Ally, I'll try to share these out for you, but you have a question?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to discuss like the use of technology with our younger students, and I guess
We can't
Hold on one
Yeah.
second, Ally. Estacia is running up to make you louder.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I've been wanting to discuss the use of technology for our younger students for a while now, and I feel like this is a good time to bring it up. Um, so for K through 4, I'm hearing more and more research just not supporting the benefits of learning from a computer or tablet. There's a lot about how handwriting really like for the prefrontal cortex and the development of the brain, writing things down allows them to absorb more information. It eliminates it can reduce anxiety and reduce behavioral issues with children, especially with ADHD and ADD. And I'm hearing already a lot of parents being concerned about the pre-K program. And if they send their kids for a full day of pre-K, are they going to be exposed to a screen? So I would really like to dive in as a board to, do we think pre-K through 4 needs to be seeing a screen at all during the school day? I personally feel like they don't. I think the research really supports that they don't. And I think that could be a huge cost savings for the district as well. And I'm just saying K through 4, but we could obviously dive into what age we really feel like they need to start learning computer literacy. Yeah, there's a lot of research out there, and I will share it with the board, but from a lot of different perspectives, even just as far down to like the level of how they're absorbing the lesson. It's just not, the research doesn't really show, I think, as many benefits as we might think.
Anything else from the board?
Ally, that's a big piece to unpack in this particular session. So noted, I guess, is what I would say. And I think that, or there are board members that have expressed concern about it too. And so I think we'll need to really deep dive it. Yeah.
I think, yes, and I was just going to say, maybe one of our elementary principals could just speak to it. I know we've done that before, but if one of you could just come up, talk a little bit about what a day may look like as far as technology, just very, very briefly, because I know this warrants a larger question or a larger discussion. Who's going to be it?
Oh my God.
I'll ask that, just for those who aren't aware of the typical elementary kiddo classroom. They come home, the amount of papers they come home with, I don't want anyone to think that all they do are sit on devices all day. That is not the case at all. The stacks of papers, I'm constantly trying to sneak off the counter to other places to clean my counters. They're doing a lot of writing, a lot of things. I'm not saying they're not using devices, but they definitely have plenty of worksheets and journaling and all that. Just add to it. Not advocating either way. I just want to make we're painting a clear picture.
Just for the sake of time, I'm wondering if it would be better just we put it on a future agenda. We're not going to solve anything tonight. I, as a board member, I don't have questions. I mean, Bridget in the past has answered questions regarding technology use for the board. She's done a really nice job. I still, with the bring your own device, I'm wondering why do if it's more expensive and more problematic, why do a number of districts do bring your own device? So, they obviously would have done their own pro-con list and they landed on the bring your own device. So I do think that at another time, this warrants some more investigation. I understand where we're at now.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Elva, you had?
I just would like to remind people that we do need the devices for assessments at grade 3, grade 3 at least. So just to consider that in the conversation.
And Josh, I think when Bridget's able to come back in, we can maybe step back into this for a second and see what she can provide in terms of that overall piece.
Yeah, again, it doesn't need to be tonight. I think it can be an agenda item in the future. I think that's part of this budget.
No, I meant about.
It's not to be something in this budget, but maybe in the future as we look to do something like that, maybe a subcommittee if people are interested or something along those lines.
Got it. Thank you.
So I guess what I'll say is our principals are off the hook for this evening. Okay. I'm having trouble with my microphone. Can you tell? Okay. With that subject, the next one is professional development. And so this question came up about there are increases in some or all of the elementary professional development lines. So there was a question asked to break the PD out by school. On that sheet. Okay. Does everybody have it?
Oh, is it about that particular?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, so just a few things. There was a question about why we have a PD line for teaching and learning and why schools have a PD line. So the difference, I will say, is some PD is specific to the district and some is specific to the schools. For example, the PBIS, our schools are in different places with PBIS. So some of the PD that they need to do is different school to school. So that varies school to school. The other example would be, say, if we're doing cross grade level professional development, that is going to come out of the teaching and learning budget line items because it's that whole grade level or all of those grade levels that are going to be receiving those PD pieces. So with that said, we did go through and we did break down the PD for our schools, our professional development. So Noble High School, and I will not read all of this, but Noble High School has $10,000 set aside. That's their typical amount of money. And there is a place in this so that if there are individual requests that come up, it can be addressed. As far as if the art department has something that they would like to go to a workshop. It certainly doesn't cover absolutely everything with this amount of money versus how big our staff is. So we really work at the high school level to kind of work over a few year period so that people who want to go to PD or have PD are able to do so. Again, the off-bond grant also helps us with deflect or defray some of the costs. So we are also using those funds and they reimburse up to 50%. Noble Middle School has 2,500 listed, and that's for bar and restorative justice training. And that's primarily for substitutes because these programs, these workshops, or these professional development opportunities are offered at no cost. So then we go into Knowlton School. And as you can see, the elementary schools are very similar in the way they break this down. So they each have a PBIS line. Some are different than others depending on how many staff are participating and what kind of workshops that they are. There's also a literacy workshop, dyslexia training. That also varies school by school depending on how many staff go. That is offered, every year or every other year. So we do try to have number of staff going out for those workshops and coming back and utilizing those skills. And then we do have also school-specific literacy training and supports, and that varies school by school. And that goes back to the point when I mentioned there's some PD that we do whole district, and then there's some PD that's specific to the schools. So the different schools have different items in there or different figures in there based on the school and the school needs. And then you will see some other specific information like Hanson School has listed some intervention training, which is Cloud 9. And then Hussey School has a workshop for 504 for building coordinators and administrators. So that kind of goes through all of the PD that we have in the school lines. And I will say that that entire page totals 0.10% of the entire budget.
Audra? This doesn't include the professional development in terms of getting a master's or doctorate.
Correct. That's all course reimbursement.
Okay.
Yes.
They can also use Alphon for that.
Yes, they can, and we are.
Awesome.
Yes.
The school-specific literacy training, is that approved through the teaching and learning curriculum? Like who decides on, I guess my question is the literacy training all the same for all the elementary schools, or is it different?
It depends on the school and it depends on the grade level. It's really tailored by the school. If you want, the other thing is that we pulled it out of the teaching and learning. We can put that back in if that makes more sense. We're just trying to really show specifically by school, but we can move that.
Yeah, I guess my concern is just, we saw a big increase in professional development among schools, and what we were told is that it came from the teaching and learning, but when we looked at numbers in the budget, it didn't come from teaching and learning, so it was just a flat out increase. And so my question is, is this school-specific literacy training, that seems to be the biggest one for the increase if I was gonna do that. So is that we haven't done school-specific literacy training in the last few years, in the last few budgets, and we're doing it now?
We have done it, and last year it was primarily, some of it was in a grant, some of it was in teaching and learning, and some of the money in teaching and learning now is coming up for math PD if we go with the math programs.
So is it a continuation of the literacy training they have been receiving?
Yes, yeah.
I have lots of concerns about that, just the data.
Data's
It's questionable as far as whether it's actually having the impact. That is something I'd like to follow up on at another time. We can note that. Thank you.
like I said, a couple of weeks ago, we're still working on the data, but we will present that to you. We are seeing some increases in data, and so we'll share that with you.
Are there opportunities for cost effective or cost efficiencies if we combine the training for the elementary schools?
We do sometimes do cross, like kindergarten has been meeting together for some of the literacy. So, yeah. And again, I will also point out, when you're looking at the entire PD line, it's a very small amount to our full budget. The substitutes should be next. Do you have substitutes next?
They don't, but
Okay,
because
who's gonna read it?
I'm just gonna read it to you. So what we did was we looked at Frontline, which is our system that covers subbing for us. And I'm gonna read specifically from, AJ was able to pull specific from the high school. So there have been 22 full weeks in our school year, and 21 of those weeks have had greater than 25 individuals needing a permanent sub to fill those openings during the week. So you're thinking about like 5 per week, basically, is what you know what I'm saying, 25 or a little bit more. Well over 95% of the days that a permanent sub is needed to cover classes. We currently have 4 permanent subs and 80 teaching positions that we try to fill when teachers need to be out of the building at the high school level. So, and then honestly, from that K-7 crew is an overview as well. There's 2 permanent subs per building. And they also are at over 95% of the days that a permanent sub is covering a class. Those other 5% timeframes are typically supporting students in classrooms because we don't cover for ed techs. And once in a blue moon, if there's somebody who is, if there's 100% attendance in the building and all of the techs are in, they might be in a classroom supporting students who might be in need. So kind of good bang for the buck, honestly.
Did you say 95% of the time, all the permanent subs are being used? Okay, I heard this. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next page is grants.
Oh, I had something real quick on that one, if you have a second.
Sure.
Can we get any data on how often a class is not able to be covered by a substitute? Like how often that happens? I heard that it has happened a couple times this school year, but I'm just wondering if there's any way we could incentivize like more substitutes in our district, if that is a number that's, you know, of concern at all.
We can
Yeah.
work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Briefly, I wanted to answer a question Jerry had for me about workers' comp mod.
The mod rate.
I forgot to get back to you. So when we have workers' compensation, the way they set our rates is they give us a mod rate, which it basically takes our experience, how many claims we have, how expensive they are into consideration when they reissue our workers' comp insurance. Again, being 1, if it was a 1.0, it would be that we are paying as much in premiums as they're paying in claims. It would be a wash. If the number is under 1, it means we're paying more in premiums than they're paying in claims, which is a good place to be year to year. And if we're over 1, that's where we see more insurance hikes because we have more claims than that we've paid for. Fiscal 25, so the current fiscal year, our mod rate is 0.57, which is extremely good.
That's awesome.
We do have a lot of work done in the buildings. There are safety committees. We work hard if there's a problem to address what that problem is. Look at each incident and make sure it gets resolved. Usually we get our new mod rate in February. We don't have it yet. So once we get it, I can circle back around, but I'm expecting it to be in a similar place. Okay. All right. You were asked, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was, that's okay.
Okay. I was asked to take a look at positions paid by grants and compare fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. So what you have in front of you is a 1-page sheet. It has all of the grants that we have used both in fiscal 25 and 26, and it indicates which positions were paid. Some of those you should note are partial positions. Some are stipends, but that should be, I think I don't remember who asked the question, but I think that should be what you need.
Denise, and under fiscal year 26, it next to or across from 2310 fund number it says none, but then below that, it says one teacher, one ed tech, and two directors. Is that
I
relative
think
to
it's
the
a
line below?
it's a pagination issue,
local
yes.
entitlement.
The line
It's
below?
local entitlement,
Thank you.
yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Maybe do the next one?
The next,
Numbers.
sure. The next one is the annual building operating costs, and this was also another, a question just for further information.
Okay, this is the gigantic spreadsheet that's folded that was handed out. Letter size paper.
About the one above it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, is that what I'm doing? I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
That one's.
Oh, I have it here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
I don't-
We
I
have,
just have it.
we were asked to compile some information about the annual cost to operate our buildings. And so what you have is a one-page document. It has all of the buildings listed on the side. We included utilities, heat, electricity, snow and trash removal, water and sewer. We included insurance, telephones, fees charged for inspections and other such things, and then contracted services, which could be anything from, treating the property for ticks to, elevator maintenance to whatever. So that was it. We did not include salaries and benefits, supplies, or those annual CIP projects and general maintenance projects, as we thought that would kind of skew the numbers a bit because it varies year to year. And on the far right, you can see our estimate of the cost per square foot.
Now the big one.
Now the big one.
Now the big one.
Can I just for, we have a lot of people in attendance tonight, just a quick summary of the operating cost per square foot. Just generally is in the 3 to 4 range for almost all of our buildings. Mary Hurd is at $8.22, so that's a significant difference. And in the bus garage,
That's what the garage.
that's 8.96, but that's a garage, we expect that. But as far, all the other buildings are within, Lebanon Elementary is 5.87, but all the buildings are 3 to 4. Again. Yeah.
This is a spreadsheet that I think I developed last year. I was asked, how much does it cost to operate our district, including grants, including regular budget? What does it cost? So what you have are 2 sheets of paper. One is for the 24-25 budget. And the second one, page 2, is for 25-26. And what I've done is I have on the left, you have all of the cost centers alphabetized, for lack of a better way to do that. The amount that was in the district budget, and then all of the grants that we used over the course of fiscal 25 or will use, and what categories they are in. For example, we have a fund from the state of Maine for preventing student homelessness. So all of the funds from that grant go into the 504 homeless grant, homeless line on the left. Similarly, we have, for example, we have local entitlement, which is a special education grant. And you can see that the total amount of the grants are going into that category. So on the far right, you see approximately how much for each category, each cost center, and a grand total, all of our There's a lot of information here. I'm happy to discuss it at another time as well, but if you have questions.
Ally?
Hi. Okay, not sure if this is the right time to bring this up, so tell me if it's not. But a lot of parents had requested the full copy of the Harriman study be sent out to them. And I know that covers a lot about like the cost analysis, but and the, you know, cost of running each school. Is that something that we plan to send out?
We have the presentation that they did online that has a great deal of information in it that really goes through costs and everything. So you can direct parents or community members there for that information.
I know a lot of them had a trouble visualizing what it was a lot of information. I don't think a lot of them really got like the full scope from the video. So I know a lot had asked to have it scanned in so they can kind of like zoom in and take a look. And then I had a second part to that question, which was just if they're planning to do a cost analysis of all of the master plan options.
So I will say we can scan that and put that up on the webpage. That will be easier. It sounds like for the presentation. And then, you know, the cost analysis, we can, you know, we will look through that. I don't believe that was part of what they did yet. But we're continuing to work with them as they're refining their final documents for us. So we'll go through some of those questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I think that addresses most of those questions from the other day, and we're going to move into agenda item number 3, which is a summary of the driving forces, the rationale, and the details for the proposed reconfiguration. That is also tab 17. And there is a document that has been compiled into a few different sections. So it talks about the current structure, the budget process again, the model, facilities use study, and how would a 712 program work, and then busing. There's a section on busing. And I will read this just because we have audience members, and I know that we also want those who are in the audience who will be viewing this to hear this in its complete form. So our current structure at the elementary levels is Lebanon. We have Hanson School, grades K to 3, Lebanon Elementary, grades 4 and 5. North Berwick, we have North Berwick Elementary School, grades K to 4. In Berwick, we have Vivian Huzzy School, grades K to 3, and Eric O. Knowlton School, Berwick 4 and 5, and the North Berwick 5th grade school, or 5th grade students, sorry. Noble Middle School is grades 7 and 6. Noble High School is grades 8 through 12, and then we have MHA, which also has our students, I believe they're 8th grade, right, 8 to 12 right now. The budget process. So again, as we begin our process to develop the fiscal year school budget, we worked on a zero-based budgeting, which we talked about last week, where we start with a zero. We don't take last year's figures and just modify them up. We look at every single area of our budget and we build from the zero portion. And that's why you see year to year some fluctuations in different accounts, textbooks, supplies, depending on what everyone needs. So we did this with keeping in mind our current programming, staffing needs, and needs of the district for capital improvements and projects. And we came to a budget of $55 million. And this is far above the fiscal 25 budget of $49+ million. It represented a 11.56 increase in the expenses, but it would have impacted the taxpayers at an even higher percentage. As a team, we recognize that this is not possible for our towns to manage. And I'm just going to review the factors that impacted this significant increase. So we had decreased enrollment, and we continue to see a decrease in enrollment. increased tax valuations, increases in straight costs for almost every single product and utility that schools utilize. Then we had contracted increases for staff, the paid family medical leave tax, large increases, 15% in the proposed right now. We will get those final numbers in a month or two. In the cost of insurance for all areas, medical, property, liability, etc., and decreases in revenue from various sources, including the fund balance. So, with the facts in front of the team regarding costs, we made a large shift in our thinking and examined the opportunities for the district to consolidate resources and maximize spaces. As the administrative team worked through the financial concern, much time was spent on looking at enrollment and space. Our teams discussed several potential solutions, but without actual reconfiguration of spaces, none of them would actually reach the level of savings necessary to reduce the budget significantly. We moved forward with the idea of a 7 to 12 building, moving to an early elementary model for our towns with a middle elementary model for 4, 5, and 6. This idea was vetted by the team during the last 2 weeks in February. This model includes moving the 7th grade to Noble High School and forming a 7th and 8th grade middle school within the physical structure that currently houses grades 8 to 12. Focusing on consolidation of space, we would move the 4th and 5th grades to 2 district locations. 4th grade becoming a standalone school at Knowlton School, and 5th grade joining the 6th grade that already comes together at the current Noble Middle School. And it would provide the pre-K to 3 school programs in each of their towns. This plan allows for minimal use of Lebanon Elementary School. It allows for 5th and 6th grade to fully utilize the middle school building. It allows for the 7th and 8th grade middle school within a school on the high school campus. Students would continue to receive the same amount of time for specials, globals as they receive now, and that includes Excel supports as well throughout the district. It moves our students to a K-6 and 7 to 12 busing schedule. Programmatically and financially, it reduces the numbers of staff needed in Lebanon and North Berwick and shifts the bulk of the staff to Knowlton and Noble Middle School. This move allows for us to reduce the teaching staff numbers throughout the district by 18.2 and support staff, which encompasses educational technicians, custodians, etc., by 13. There is also a reduction of the equivalent of 2 administrative positions, and these are not insignificant numbers. Consolidating our programs allows for efficient use of resources, both human and programmatic. Those are noted throughout the individual school and cost center presentations that have been shared with you. So the facilities use study, just a little bit on that. One of the factors that supports our thinking was the very thorough facilities use study that was conducted by Harriman and Associates over the past several months. The board had made a very forward-thinking decision to have a facilities use study conducted, as the MSAD 60 buildings are at varying degrees of age and need. Harriman reviewed all of the buildings, made use of district data, and walked through every single school to note all the positives and also those areas that are in need of addressing. They developed a critical need list, ADA compliance list, and rated the building in terms of financial needs. That information was compiled and shared with the district office in late February. They presented their full overview to the school board on March 6th. Harriman developed 7 options that they would suggest we examine to set our path over the next several years in regard to facility use. One of those options actually is a future iteration of the plan that the district has presented to our board for consideration, minus the addition at Hanson School. There will be more discussion of the full facilities use study at future board meetings as we plan for the ongoing needs of the district. How would the 7 to 12 program work on the Noble High School campus? The team has given this a considerable thought, and with relocating the central office and adult education departments to Noble Middle School and Knowlton School respectively, there is room for the additional students and staff. This opportunity would allow for a wing of the building that would be for the exclusive purpose of providing a unique Noble Middle School. The school will have its own schedule, specialists to provide globals, special education staff, an administrator, and a counselor. It would not be necessary to share specialists with the high school programs, except in rare cases where students are accessing advanced courses. Students will have a separate middle school lunch period and will not be on the same bell schedule as the high school students. There will be minimal contact between middle and high school students on a normal basis. And then the last part of this is busing. In our current configuration, 6 to 12 students, grades 6 to 12 students, all ride the bus together. So this proposal does not change that piece at all for the grade 7 to 12 students. We will be revising the 6th grade schedules to be on the elementary timeframe, so the buses would run kindergarten to grade 6 and grade 7 to grade 12, with only one stop to make for our drivers once students have been picked up. It actually will shave off a bit of time in the morning drop-offs. So that just means like we have buses drop off at the Noble Middle School and then they come to the high school or vice versa. That run would be all just one here, 7 to 12 here, drop off, and then swing out to start the elementary run. Our kindergarten to 6th grade runs are being reconfigured as we speak to accommodate our plan to have pre-K to 3 students in their hometowns and the 4 to 6th grade students in Berwick. Currently, students ride the bus for a range of time from a very, very short to long. Berwick, Lebanon, and North Berwick all have runs over an hour currently. Ms. Kamet, who's our transportation director, is currently reworking the routes to accommodate this potential change and is confident that the routes will be no longer. Nor does she feel they will cost more in terms of fuel as the reroutes will cover the same amount of miles. Any questions of just about that?
Still don't understand what the rationale is for keeping the Lebanon School open and moving the kids out.
So there's a process to go through to close a school. And that process takes about a year. And not just closing a school, but we as a board would need to talk about what are the next steps with that building. So it's premature to, this came up last year as part of our budget discussion too, about closing a school. And Denise, do you want to talk a little bit about what that entails? All of, if we were to look at that?
One of the rules with closing a school is you have to have the community vote to close it. It's one of the regulations. There are forms to file with the state and you have to actually have a vote. It is not a vote by all residents and voters in the district, only by the town where the school is. So it would mean Lebanon voters would have to vote for it. That means it has to be somewhere in a ballot, which it would be June of some year. And then one of the things is we're not probably ready to do that this year. I think we're not quite there. So what has to happen is we have to provide some sort of K-12 instruction in that building in order for it not to be unofficially closed. And so we don't run afoul of those rules. We have to find some K-12 instruction.
What would that be? I mean,
Is that like specials?
Like
Right. The gym or whatever.
Right, utilizing the gym. Yes, yeah. And, Kevin is not here, but just speaking for the minimal use, keeping Lebanon Elementary open and for minimal use, some of the we would have some savings in the electricity, some other of those utility pieces. There are certain things that we would certainly continue to have to do. Just to have the building open, but even if we didn't have anybody using that building, we would still need to do that. For example, we would have to have the heat on the 55 or 60 because we have a sprinkler system. So there are things in there that we would need to continue to look at, but we do expect a savings just for the fact of not having grade level classes in there.
It seems that we're a little bit. We made a decision very quickly to move the fourth grade, fifth grade out of Lebanon, but we're still going to keep the school open. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have just left it status quo, worked on this plan, and then kind of shifted things? I don't know what the team was that worked on it, but it does seem a little bit premature to shift everybody around as quickly as we've been doing.
Well, I think when you have $5 million that you need to look out of the budget, it does some of this is premature in the sense of course, if we had as much money as we could potentially have and take our time with some of this, we had always had a discussion about how to write the district because we've known for years that enrollment was going down. The Harriman study confirmed that enrollment is going to continue to go down. So we've always had conversations and thoughts about what if this happens or what if this happens, and I'm going to pull back from way back when, but when I was principal at Hussey School, I got a call from the superintendent at 11:30 at night saying on Monday, this was Thursday night, he's like, on Monday morning, you're going to have the Lebanon fourth and fifth grade students there because they had a roof collapse. And so they were there at the Hussey School for a few months. So we've always known that it's an older building. We've kept it up very well, but that is a piece right now that we're looking at as well.
I realize that we have empty space and I knew that last year when I was listening to the board talking about it. I just feel like if we're going to keep that building open rather than rattling everybody's cages, and there's been some cages being rattled, that it would have been better to have worked on it at a slower pace, and maybe we should rethink this. I just think that we have a lot of stuff going on, rescheduling of specials and all of that too.
I think that is part of the process though, Nancy, is that being able to put all of our fourth grade team together in one building and all of our fifth and sixth grades together does allow for us to consolidate staff, and having just fourth and fifth grade in Lebanon doesn't provide our goal is to do this in a way that provides good consistency and provides I guess it's forced collaboration, honestly, of our teams being consistent grades 4 through 12 and K to 3. There's lots of arguments in a lot of different directions. I hear you and I see that, but this is actually
I think
closing Lebanon is an end game eventually for us.
I think what you decided to do was something that was going to need to be done. I think it was just done very, very quickly.
Yes,
And
100%.
maybe it would have, and again, because we haven't moved anybody, maybe we should give it some more thought before we start shifting everybody around. Because I don't think it's.
Well, how are we gonna explain an additional $5 million tax money to all the residents out there? Do they want?
I'm not sure where this $5 million was suddenly, that's going to be because you keep a school.
No, because of transferring people. Tell me if I'm wrong. We're
Reductions in staff will definitely be part of that piece of it. So we can look at what it would look like to keep it open in terms of like what cost savings we would still have if we looked at the other pieces of it. But I think it's picking at the threads, and then all of a sudden
We have to get a budget done. I recognize that. I know there's a time, there's a limit. I recognize that it's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of, irons in the fire. I just want to, and I also am a little bit speak on behalf of my town is that the idea of keeping a gym in the school so that it doesn't go on the agenda to be shut down. I think that, we know the town's not going to want to shut that school down. They've said that many, many times. They keep their school and keep it running. So I speak on their behalf and say, I speak for them.
It sounds like they will have an opportunity to vote.
What are we going to do? We've got everybody, it's an empty building that we're going to be supporting because the town won't shut it down. I'm waiting to see how that works out. So just saying, anyway, I thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things I'm curious about, we have the part in the rationale here, there are many factors impacting the significant increase to expenses, right, that section. I'd like to know, what is the actual loss in decrease in enrollment? What's the actual number? You know,
So
do we know that?
I think it's
44
for this year, it's 44
for
students.
What's the cost? What was the actual loss of revenue?
So the ED
from the state.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the revenue, right? It's coming from the state. I wonder what that number is.
So let me get my calculator up and running. So the ED 279 is tab 6. And if you go down to the bottom of page 1, you can see that, and this is going to be a very conservative number because you, as you remember, you go through the other pages and it pulls extra revenue in. So this is a very conservative jumping point for essential programs and services. But if you did $8,500 times 44 students, that's 374,000 in reduced revenue. And again, that's probably going to be closer to $500,000, but that's a ballpark.
So $500,000, and we're talking about a jump from last year to, if we kept everything the same. I'm describing it incorrectly, but essentially we're talking about this $5 million, right, that we have to reduce. And we're saying decrease enrollment of about $500,000. So 4.5, where's the other 4.5 million? You know, like, I'd almost like to see the breakdown of where that 5 million is in these factors. Part of it, from what I mean, I know school districts are heavy in most of our budget is wrapped up in salaries and benefits. I mean, we know that, right?
83%.
Yeah, 83%, right? It's a huge percentage. If we are going to drop $5 million, we are talking about staff. Yeah, that's the bottom line, right? And my question, and I also believe that this Harriman study was rushed. I mean, we knew when we hired Harriman that they were not going to be finished. They weren't going to come to the board for a presentation until February, right? So my thinking at that point, and I thought we had discussed as a board, is we weren't thinking that any action is going to be taken. We knew they had to go through the study, and then we would need significant time to review that study, talk about the implications of each decision, think about the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan when it comes to transitions, because from what I understand, there's been a lot of transitions happening in this district. And I hear from people, they want to stop the transitions. They just, the set plan, and they plan for the next 10 years and call it good. And with 2 weeks, I don't know that we've had enough plan to say that that's definitely the 10-year plan. We know pre-K is coming for 1 year. Could it be longer? Sure. But even we've discussed that as a board, saying, all right, you know, we know we're doing this 1 year, and then we are going to talk about, you know, its future, and we're going to change all of our students and where they're going, because we've agreed to a 1 year pre-K. There's just I just have so many questions. I am very uncomfortable with the transition plan. I understand we need to cut $5 million, and I, as a board member, am prepared to figure out how do we cut $5 million and not do the transition. And I would like our administration to consider that option, figure out how we do that.
I want to just address, so you pointed out the $500,000 in reduced enrollment. That is simply one bullet point of many. You have the increased to insurance, you have contractuals, you know, association agreements we've contracted with. We have lots of reasons. We sat as an entire administrative group forever, talking through what can we do. You know, again, the $55 million budget, that was our first. Generally keep things as it was, keep grade 4 and 5 and let keep every, you know, all of the towns as the current structure is. And to your point, the consolidation, the restructuring has to be between buildings. There's, you know, we looked at how could we save it individually? What could we, be more efficient at? And we came to the point where the efficiency is combining, for example, grade 4, so that you can spread those students over the number of teachers you need. So again, to your question, you want to see, I'm not exactly clear on what exactly you want to see with respect to the $55 million. What is that? So I can.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably not an easy answer, to give it all due respect, right? But we're talking a $5 million increase if everything was kept the same. Like, okay, so where's that 5 million? It's mostly contracts, right? 83% of our budget is.
If things stay the
It's mostly
same,
contracts. In my understanding, as a board, we've discussed, we knew that if we approved contracts, every association knew that there were going to be significant major cuts to their memberships in order to make it work. They knew. So
but Josh, so understanding that, significant cuts means consolidations of staff to work with kids. And so if we're looking at it that way, we need to actually have our students in places together where staff can work with them, not spread. I don't know. I guess I'm not understanding what isn't clear, because the reality of it is that if we have everything status quo in terms of where kids are, it just means less bodies in the buildings, less adults in the buildings. And that's not necessarily great practice for safety concerns, for actual delivery of instruction. So our thought process was really more about how can we make sure our kids are still getting a good quality education. So I mean, you're nodding at me, but what do you ask? What are you saying?
the reality is, I'm sorry, I keep stealing the mic from you, Nancy.
I see that.
We know that in Maine, we've had a 72% increase since 2013. This is on Edunomics out of Georgetown University, right? We've seen the inflation over that time has gone up 35%. Cost of education has got up 72%, more than double inflation. We've been honest. We've been honest in saying, like, look, people want these contracts. Okay, but there has to be a change. So what I'm saying is, I don't know, how creative can we get as an administration, as a board? We can get, we know we can be significantly creative. I agree, it would be radical shifts, yes, but we might be at a time where we have to think radically and consider radical shifts. What we're thinking about right now is not a radical shift. It is moving kids and consolidate.
It's like
I would consider that a radical shift. That's the point.
It's 33 people, 33 people with the adjustments that we're doing. So what you would be asking is for the staff to do this work, but less supported, because they wouldn't be together if we don't make these consolidations. I guess I don't understand. You're like, I know you have an idea in your head about what you can do. So feel free.
Oh, gosh, no, I don't have an idea of saying this, right? I don't. I know it can be done. There are school
Really?
districts across the nation who have had to do significant changes, right? Our current budget is around $20,000 per student. There are millions of school districts across the United States whose cost per student is not 20,000, right? What are they doing? How do they do it? And I think we need to look at all those possibilities and consider those possibilities. I don't know what they are. I would want our administration knowing that we knew this last year. I mean, I rose the red flag. We were going to have significant issues with budget last year.
Right.
We knew this a year ago. And to wait on the Harriman study and to just say, oh, we're going to consolidate and call it good. Like, what significant, crazy, radical options did we consider? Or is this the only option that's being presented to the board? Or are there other options that you as an administrative team want us to look at and consider the radical adjustments that would be? I'm willing to look at all those different radical ideas. That's what I'm saying.
Could I chime in for a second here? Sorry, I know I get it's hard to see me over here. But I kind of echo Josh's sentiments on this one. I think I think we're kind of rushing into this. And I do think that for this change to happen, I think the community really needs like a solid year. I think the way the population is declining, I think consolidation is absolutely the answer to our financial problems. But I think doing it this year is really going to be overwhelming for students. From what I've heard from some teachers, it's already sounding pretty overwhelming for them. I feel horrible for the kids going in to just have fourth grade in one building, for example. I think just learning a building, learning the ins and outs of your route and feeling at home in a place is going to take more than a year, and then they're being kind of ripped right out. So I, for one, would like to explore more of an idea of a pre-K through 4 neighborhood school, 5 through 7 middle school regionally, and an 8 through 12 high school. And I think postponing that conversation until next year and trying to, not jar the whole district this year, if we can avoid it, would be really ideal. I think it's just a lot of change really happening really quickly and that's just not my opinion. That's the feedback I've gotten from many, many different members of the community, teachers, students. That's the overwhelming feedback I'm getting.
Go ahead, Nancy.
You sure? Josh?
Your neighbor, you'll have to figure that one out.
I'm just curious because we're talking 5 million, but we're not really reducing it by 5 million. I believe the budget is still kind of a 2 million increase or 3 million over. What is it? That was one number I didn't look at. I know, but I'm gonna let Denise tell me.
Find my revenue sheet. Hold on 1 second. At tab 22. If you look at that page, the revenue sheet. So our current proposed budget, which is 50,506,797 in expenses, is a 2.39% increase to expenses. So that means with all of our increases to salary, all of our 15% increases to insurance and budgets, those sorts of things, our increase is only 2.39 to expenses. So hold on a second. So the rest of this is a loss of revenue. The rest of the increase, which brings us to 8.85%.
Okay, so it is increased by 1.2, but a loss of revenue makes it 8. So
The expenses are increasing by 2.39%. So the expenses are going up,
right,
but only by 2.39. The revenue that we're losing, for example,
the ESSER
fund balance we're not using.
right, and the ESSER funds that we have no more.
That's not part of this calculation.
Right, they're all gone.
Yes, but those were grants, so that's not part of this calculation. We're not pursuing main care revenue at this point.
Right.
So when you take up those changes, it means the residents are responsible for more of the budget, and the increase for the school side of things is 8.85. So 2.39 on expenses, but an increase to taxpayers of 8.85 for this version.
Okay, I'll have to study that.
Okay.
I have a clarification too. For the $55 million, that's if we keep things as is and do all of the 5-year critical repairs, correct?
No, just keeping things, that was just our estimate for keeping things as they are. The critical repair piece is actually outside of that. Yeah.
Isn't reflected.
Yeah.
The $10 million high school roof, all of those examples they gave, those are not included in this budget.
Okay.
And not the ADA either.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Kate, did you have?
Okay. So one of the things, thank you. One of the things that I've been hearing from parents, seeing it on Facebook and actually email, is that they feel that the kids have been moved around too much already. I don't know the history of the movements, so could you kind of talk about what kind of previous consolidations and movements you've done in, say, the last 5 years?
Think about when that's happened.
5 years.
4 years?
Well, yeah.
It's
So
my-
North,
In the past 5 years, right, North Burke, fifth grade is moving to the Knowlton School. Now,
And then we did the COVID. Aside from the COVID.
yeah, COVID, yeah, that was a big thing, because
Yeah.
that was, yeah.
but that was also to get our students to school.
Yeah.
If we did not make that change, our students would have mostly been remote.
Right, so that was, COVID definitely threw a sort of in everybody's world. Mhm. Prior to that, the eighth grade went to the high school in 2013.
That long ago.
Yeah, I know, seems like yesterday.
Wow.
What I heard
In
a lot.
terms of actual,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
so in terms of actual shifting of student bodies, there really has not been a great deal of that.
No, except that I think that this particular cohort of kids going through, particularly now at the high school level, have felt it based on the COVID years and the changes that happened over that timeframe. For sure. I mean, I think change has been unfortunately a little more of the norm than not for, well, all of us in the past few years. So the perceptions are truly there, and I don't deny that.
I don't think that's new, though. I mean, when my daughter's class, she graduated 2000. The Berwick School closed, and then we moved some from Hussey to Knowlton. I mean, she was part of, I think, 3 different shifts.
And
I don't think it's neat.
I mean, over the years with the buildings that, just like Berwick Elementary, I mean, I could go through the whole history if you want, but Berwick Elementary School closing and the moving to the Hussey and all that. So, so over this, I could put a document together pretty easily if you want. That would be helpful, if it would be helpful to people. That's okay.
I think you said it when you said perceptions,
For sure.
that COVID.
It's real.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. That COVID perception really sticks with everybody because it's so traumatic. Because the actual movements have been more minimal, I think.
We're living in very, kind of angsty times for everybody. So I think that it definitely, all of this increases the anxiety that people have.
I had
Oh,
a
Ally.
Sorry, I had a couple people, well, quite a few people comment just in general on the amount of transitions we have from Berwick. It's a 4. Yeah, if you're starting at pre-K, 2, 3, 4 transitions. Am I right? 3 or 4?
Currently 3.
3 for Berwick. Okay. And they had just commented that is already kind of a lot for the kids just to go to a school for 2 years. So I think that kind of furthered my idea about the 2 transitions in, a local grade school, regional, middle, regional, high.
I would just like to say that we have till the beginning of April, right? Vote on a budget.
Couple weeks.
In order to get it printed so we can vote on it. And I don't know how we're going to get this done if you form some other new plan, unless we want to be here every night. So should we vote to say whether we want this plan?
Can't vote tonight
Before we
anyways. This
vote
is a,
on the
this is a
money.
workshop. I think
No,
more
not today. I'm
conversation.
not saying today.
No, but I think more conversation needs to happen for people. Yeah, Jerry.
So for load balancing classrooms, how does this formulate or work out in comparison to the existing model, the new model in comparison to the existing model?
Like class sizes, that kind of thing
Yeah, but in classrooms,
in classrooms. Yeah.
you know, I mean, are there going to be 15 kids in classrooms in one school and 22 in classrooms in another school? But with the new load balancing, you get more of an equilibrium in each classroom. That's what I'm reaching for.
We can break that down for you for next week at our meeting. But yes, the goal is to be more, equitable as far as students in the classrooms. So yes, yeah.
Yeah, I just, what Ally said, as a parent, I am certainly concerned about the number of transitions. Still wrapping my head around this whole idea in general as a parent, because I have kids very directly affected by this move. But what I really like and hope in a perfect world is that this now means that fourth grade is currently all third grade is separate right now. All the towns come together at once. So there's this really unique, wonderful team building, build a community opportunity for fourth grade. Fifth grade is now going to be in that same thing. Nobody, Lebanon, Berwick, North Berwick together right now in fourth grade. So they're all going to be coming together new. And then sixth grade will be North Berwick and Berwick
Everybody.
coming together with Lebanon. And so same thing. So I just think it's really going forward. I think the fourth grade, for the first time, all the kids coming together can become a really impactful school to set the tone going forward. But also this year specifically, because it'll be the first time fifth has ever all come together and sixth will still be transitioning, that there are some really unique opportunities to really build a noble, strong community moving forward. Still wrap my head around a lot of it, but I'm hoping that with this, that is one of the real true benefits that comes through. And a lot of the issues that we see at middle school and things like that with, the kids coming in from joining up at different points in time and alliances formed and different things, that this will really this has an opportunity to really take away that piece.
I agree. Oh,
I just wanted to say that I see that and I agree with it. I just think this year it's a little hasty. I mean, to build those camaraderies with the groups. And the other problem is the distance. I mean, if you look at the map and you look at Lebanon and you look at we're almost bigger than North Berwick and Berwick put together. And that makes a huge distance for traveling for the young kids. So that's a problem. In my mind, that's always been a problem. It's going to be a problem. How we resolve it, I don't know, because the schools are built over here, the bigger schools, but I say that we're just a little bit fast, just a little hasty. Thanks.
The point about the busing, as we mentioned in the last paragraph of that document, we would not be expecting to go much higher in a number or time that the students are on the bus as they are.
An hour ride,
But that's happening now.
I know.
It's not even saying all the buses would be that.
I know. You do, I do know that.
Okay.
My heart goes out to them.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Jerry, go ahead. Jerry, go, and then Ally.
Okay, so this isn't really a new change per se, because it wasn't that long ago that the sixth graders were pulled out of all of the schools and moved to Milton. And then for space, it helped all of them out. So this isn't a vast, shocking. This has never been done before because this has been done before. This is, if this is if this realignment helps us with some of the issues with some of our aging schools, then it just may just be necessary. I thought the sixth graders moving into Knowlton altogether was a good age to do that. Fourth grade, I'm a little concerned about them being so far because they are still fairly young. So.
Ally?
So yeah, that was kind of my concern is is this the end game for our district? Because it doesn't feel like that. And if it's not the end game for the district, then why are we rushing it this year? If we're going to move to a regional middle and consolidate some of our older schools like North Berwick, Mary Hurd, Lebanon, I don't feel like we're going to end up keeping this, I feel like we should just maybe budget for the long term of doing the additions that we need for the regional schools. And with the population decline, I just don't see how we can support having this many buildings.
Just thinking long term, when we talked about the pre-K discussion, we have a situation in Lebanon where pre-K is being provided by a private provider. The district is partnering with a private provider, right? And I say at the pre-K, like that would be my hope, because then we wouldn't be competing with our entrepreneurs in our communities, right? Who are trying to make a living. So on that note, did Harriman Associates provide any options without pre-K being in the current buildings?
They did not, because the state has said that the long-term goal for school districts is to have universal pre-K and also include CDS students. So when Harriman was going through their process of looking at the facilities, they captured that because that is what the plan was at that point in time from the state.
Does the state require us to have pre-K in our buildings, or does the state require us to be partnering? And does it require pre-K, whether it's in our buildings or partnering with providers?
Right now, they're not dictating how that's done, nor are they 100% requiring it now, because as we've talked about, they're not funding it per se, like they're not,
Beyond this,
yeah. Beyond this grant, they're not, right.
But we accepted the grant.
But we get the pre-K subsidy, don't we? So the state is funding it.
They're funding the
But it's not-
student enrollment, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And other districts who've had pre-K done this way, right? Gorham is a school district that partners with a local, and the subsidy comes to the school, and the school hands the subsidy essentially to the I don't know exactly how that works financially in Gorham, but my assumption is it's something like that, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we talked about in the fall is that we were going to reach out to all of our preschool, pre-K providers and find out if there are any others who would be interested over the course of the next year, meeting the criteria that required. Did we?
We're working through that. We're also working through, seeing which ones would be interested in doing some before care or after care. So that would be an income for them as well, and sustainability for them.
And I say all that because my hope would be that if we could get great partners, right, to work that way, then we would have that, and then we could keep kindergarten through fourth grade in our community buildings. And then we could consolidate fifth and sixth grade at the larger school. I'm thinking that is probably the current middle school, combine fifth and sixth there, and combine 7 through 12 at the high school. And for our entire community, we would only be two transitions within the public school district. A lot of our families who are using pre-K providers already have a relationship with them. Their kids have been going there for, maybe a couple of years or whatnot as they're working. So I just don't understand. I would like for us to, as a board, consider that option.
Okay, it's a little past 8:30, and I did not even give us a time at 8 o'clock because get involved. So this is the time that we said that this workshop would be concluded. Do we want to extend it? We do have an executive session. We do have a regular board meeting next week. There's part of that board meeting is also set aside for budget because we're talking about the budget every single Thursday. So does it feel like a good place to stop? I think we've got some information that we need to compile for next
Does
meeting.
anybody else have any questions?
I would just like to request that Harriman study be put out like sometime early this week, scanned in for public access, just so that at the board meeting when there's public input, they're able to have a few days to look that over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So does that mean we're going to skip number 4, considerations?
We, we can go into considerations or we can hold that off.
Are these considerations for cuts? Is that?
They just, for further discussion, they were for further discussion.
I do want to clarify something. We can't fit K to 4
In what?
we can't fit it in Hanson alone.
Or Huzzy,
Can't fit it in Huzzy alone. So
nor
just-
North Berwick.
Just those
Like
are
we can right
things
now
people
for
need to
North Berwick.
consider.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Just had to throw that out there.
Do you think we can bust through the considerations in 30 minutes?
I think we can at least have a first conversation and then
I
if
think we
we have
should
to
put it
collect
out there.
further information, yeah, we
Yep.
can do that. Yep, Jerry.
Okay, so one other, thing, since you brought up North Berwick, they have a modular, right? Does this, eliminate the modular?
It would not eliminate the modular. They would need to continue to use that for something.
Okay, and we're paying.
Not a classroom.
That's owned by the district.
We own it.
Yeah, there's no fee.
Okay, so there's not a lease on it or anything?
No.
Okay.
There are no, it's not plumbing, there's no plumbing in there. Right, so a half hour.
So we're gonna push Kevin to next week, right?
Okay.
Is that
I think
the
so.
thought process? Okay, so I'll tell him he has to show up in person.
Okay.
He's on the,
Right,
and the DEP right now.
right, okay. So bus rights on the list of considerations. Ally, you had a conversation about bus right. I think Leanne addressed it a little bit the other day when she was here and talked about the benefit of it, that it's very similar to having a GPS in the bus versus looking at a sheet with all student addresses on it. So she felt it was very much worth the investment that we have in it and that the drivers have in it as well. And she even spoke to the fact that as she is subbing and she's driving every single day, that it's really helpful for her because she isn't familiar with all the routes. And so that, I just wanted to highlight that again. Are there further discussion points you wanted to bring up, Ally, or anybody on the
No, I
board?
felt good after that conversation. I felt like I didn't know a lot of like the back end benefits of it that I wasn't seeing as like a parent. So knowing that like us being able to see the bus route is just a very small portion of the benefits made me feel a lot better. It seems like they're getting definitely their money's worth out of that program. So I am content with that.
Okay, thank you. The next one was Excel, and I believe that the question was just about having a director for this. I believe that was part of the discussion. So I will just give a summary that Dr. Swiger has been doing the Excel coordination part of the program. And we asked her to compile what she's been doing over time this year. And it's about 10 hours a month for the pieces that would require a coordinator or a director to do. So just kind of wanted to give that information. At this point in time, 10 hours a month doesn't feel like recommending a director or a full-time administrator to that is warranted. So we collected that information. That doesn't mean we don't need anybody to oversee Excel. I'm not saying that. I'm just kind of saying that as we broke through what's required, that's an accurate description of what the director piece is responsible for.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
Students are still getting Excel during the week in their own school.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And our proposal for next year would be the same.
So it would be the same as it was
Yes.
this year.
Yes. Yeah. And just for everybody that, for those of you that may not know, districts identify for Excel 3 to 5% of students for academics and mirror that for the arts. And we are currently right there within our identification. So as I said, Dr. Swiger, taking on the coordination and the director piece of that, has done those pieces. And we do have the state reports that show, that we're right there, right in line with where we need to be.
Well, I do have something to say about that. So I appreciate you taking the time to figure out how many hours a month is currently being invested in that. But again, that's just a state recommendation, and we have the ability to exceed that recommendation. So I do think we should be pushing for like 5+% of our kids to be in this elite academic group. I think it absolutely warrants a administrative position. Like I said, I compare it to athletics, and I think we should be, if we have a director of athletics, I just don't see how we can't justify a director for this elite academic group. I can tell you firsthand from experience in the Excel program with 2 out of the 3 of my kids so far. They about 3 years ago, it was looking really robust and really great. My kids are having a great time, and I'm seeing a little bit of a fizzle going on in the experience that they're, quite honestly. And I'm seeing that reflected in a lot of the other parents. We actually had a couple Excel kids pulled from the district this year to go to a district that they thought was meeting Excel needs better. So when we're talking about like increasing test scores, I think there's a huge percentage of kids at our school that could use a more challenging curriculum. And I think they need a director to oversee that.
Just to clarify, the mandate does state 3 to 5% of the students. It's not just a guideline, it's a mandate.
From chapter
Well, we have
104 is the state statutes, yeah.
At least that amount.
Not
No,
at least.
You're not supposed to identify more, honestly. Go ahead, Nancy.
It was my understanding, I mean, I know it's 3 to 5% of the population, but I thought Excel was supposed to be also a cutoff at a ability level. I mean, we kind of stretched that a little bit maybe when we go to the 3 to 5. Because wasn't Excel supposed to be at the upper end of the, when we do the COGAT, it should be up in the superior.
There's quite a lengthy criteria process that we go through using COGATs as some of that. And teacher recommendation, the Excel teachers get all together. They compile all of the scores and the data, and then selection occurs. And that does not occur until the end of 3rd grade for the 4th grade year.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other Excel?
Kindergarten Jumpstart was brought up. It was the recommendation, just that we talked about last week about Kindergarten Jumpstart and eliminating that from the budget. Primarily, one of the reasons being because we have pre-K coming in, so felt like that was going to be a good piece. Ideally, we would have potentially liked to have had another year of Kindergarten Jumpstart, but based on just the monetary pieces right now, we were looking at that piece.
So the numbers down?
The numbers were down. When we go through the kindergarten screener, we use the kindergarten screener, which is the dial screening, to look at students who may qualify for Kindergarten Jumpstart, and there's a certain piece of that. And so we weren't always hitting the population that we needed to hit for that. We were seeing over the last couple of years that it was the next level up or even the next level up. And it's a very robust program in the sense that it's 100 hours, 5 days a week. And we weren't able to get the numbers that we needed to over the last few years. So I think Lauren had an idea just to a different look at it.
Yeah, well, part of it also, on me, was thinking that this was starting, not this current summer, but the following summer. So there's no, as of this proposed budget, I want to confirm there's no Kindergarten Jumpstart for this current summer.
Correct.
Okay. I didn't realize that. So one of the thoughts I had shared was like, well, is it possible? Can we look at the numbers and does it support just one location? So all kiddos across the district go to just one school, and to have it, knowing that these are not there is no public pre-K in place yet. So I kind of see more of the argument for next year where maybe more kids would be in preschool. We kind of at least know more of our population better to better plan for kindergarten. So that being said, knowing that this is taking place this year, my definite concern is at 2 of the elementary schools, we're reducing, right? I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Actually kind of 3 of the elementary schools, we are reducing admin, but potentially introducing kids who are going to need more. So I want to make sure that we're really focusing on those kindergartners and setting them up for success, whether that's adding other supports admin back in, or, running the program for one school. I don't know, but I just want to make sure we're setting those kindergartners up for success. Because I know right now, preschool teachers locally, that program is currently in everyone's mind has been currently in place for this coming summer. So a lot of the kids with concerns where there may have been a chance a few months ago to kind of try and be more robust, try and, do other reach outs, maybe get CDS recommendations earlier. I know a lot were really planning on this program being in place. And so I think that that is going to impact some kiddos for sure.
And one thing I will also say about Kindergarten Jumpstart, our kindergarten teachers can run a modified Kindergarten Jumpstart in the classroom. And many have, for it, it's certainly not the length of time that Kindergarten Jumpstart is. It just pulls some of those high leverage pieces of Kindergarten Jumpstart and works through that as well. So, thank you. And there was I think a question about it, or just more of a further discussion about intramural funds. And I know some of this conversation stemmed from, some of our K-3 schools and just being consistent with some of the activities or some of the clubs that we're offering. So we did talk about that administratively, and we can certainly offer some of those. And I'll use student council as one of those. We can certainly add a student council or a piece in that doesn't necessarily have to be after school, as an intramural, but can be done during the day as far as, like a recess, during a recess time if they want to get together or something like that. So I didn't know if there was further discussion about that here on the board. And then the question came up about assistant principals. And we went through that listing in the beginning of the meeting when we talked about the enrollment. So, wants to start that discussion? Or are there further questions about that?
And I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it many times. I think under 350 is one principal. If you're over 350, then we have two. And that's consistent with recommendations from the University of Maine at Orono as well. Their research of schools in Maine.
I think the flip side, and again, I don't know if this goes down to assistant principals or who really needs to be the body that covers it, but I do think that we also need to make sure that we are setting the lower grade schools up for success, where we're now adding 2 whole new grades of kids into those schools. That's a lot. That's a lot of new little kids who may not have quality self-expression skills built up yet at 4 and 5.
Quality self-expression.
I just have a question. What, 2 whole grades of I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you meant by that.
Because they'll be getting pre-K and kindergarten?
In the school,
Yes,
but not this year.
this coming year.
I thought kindergarten preschool was going over to the high school.
No.
Is there room at the,
Depending on if the board accepts the,
so if we do the restructuring, pre-K is going into North Berwick Elementary School?
The regional, or the district.
One in each town.
yeah, one in each town, and Lebanon is still at this point working with.
Yeah,
The other 2 would be Huzzy School will be getting a fresh crop of pre-K kids and a fresh crop of kids.
okay, I guess I put that in the map.
And then, yeah, Northbrook would be, yeah.
And so it's not going to the high school, it's going to go over there. I think it,
Under this,
yeah,
suggestion.
I have a feeling that those teachers can pull them right in, get them settled right in. I have complete faith in them.
Any other questions? Assistant principal. That ends.
Okay, so we covered that within a half hour.
Nice job, Lauren.
16 minutes.
Okay. So I think.
So, if you have any questions for next week, make sure Audra has got them on the list. And-
Josh, thank you for getting them on Sunday. That was helpful. It really was helpful. We had a lot of time. That's one.
Yes, there is one that we're still working on. We'll have that for Thursday. We do have a question about that, though. You asked when you talk administrators, because so it was that the question came up about the total cost for the group, when you say administrative group, do you mean anybody that has a cost center? Do you mean anybody under and that association? What do you, so it's the association? Okay, thank you. Thanks for reminding me about that, Denise. All right, okay, are you ready? I think we're ready.
We're going to go into our executive session now. We thank everyone for coming.
I make a motion.
See you next week.
For one MRSA 405.